Good morning and welcome to 2024. We are on the other side. Angela, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, and I am much more optimistic for 2024. I am going to tell you 2023 was not my favorite year, but I think there's some really good things coming in 2024.
Really? Could you share them? Because we're still a little concerned on our side.
I am trying to hold as much optimism as possible so that I draw in some good stuff.
Oh, so you're just putting it out in the universe with the hopes that it'll return.
And I honestly think that I'm going to be building on the lessons from last year, and this is going to be a much better year.
Yeah, I'm getting a little sick and tired of building on all those lessons because I've been building on those lessons for a long time.
I did, the past 3, 4 years have been rough. I mean,
They
the
have.
transitions in business and in our personal life have just been so disruptive, and it seems like they never end. So I 100% get that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been crazy. Yesterday we took down the Christmas decorations, which is not quite as much fun as putting them up.
No,
It's like, and it's amazing. It took, the better part of the morning to put everything away, take everything down, put everything away. So, but we're in 2024 and I remain optimistic, cautiously so, because my numbers are telling me a story I'm not loving.
mm,
And what my numbers are telling me is that, and I believe this is attributable to things like generative AI, ChatGPT, Bard on Google, all those types of things, is our numbers on our websites are dramatically down. And, you know, we are not seeing the types of traffic that we had previously seen. And this happens occasionally when there are algorithm updates at Google or whatnot. Um, but this one feels different. And I'm trying not to be pessimistic, but this one definitely feels different.
and is it more
Um,
dramatic than some of those other shifts?
yes, it is. Because I think in the past we've seen blips on our traffic where like, like it it will drop after an algorithm change, but like within a couple of weeks, it will return back to where it was. Um, and we're just on a sort of a steady decline when it comes to impressions and traffic and overall engagement. And, I don't think it's us. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it's us. I think that what we're doing is pretty much the same, and that's probably the problem is we need to, and we will talk about what we're going to do differently. But so I don't think it's something on our side that's causing this. We post on a regular basis. I think our topics are timely. I think they're relevant. We do all of the, SEO optimization that we have done and continue to do. I think actually we're better at it. So everything that would be, which should suggest that our numbers should either remain constant or improve, um, aren't the case. Our numbers, I can tell you that our impressions are off by about 60%, and our engagement, not quite as bad. Our engagement is still not bad, but probably in the neighborhood of about 20% off. Um,
That's huge, Mike. That's
yeah, and
that's depressing.
I don't know, there could be other factors, right? So this is the end of the year. People might have been distracted by holidays, and we do talk about business and we talk about e-commerce. So it could be just in general, and we'll continue to watch this, that our topics have been kind of pushed aside because people are shopping and searching online for um, gifts and whatnot, and not so focused on business growth and business and e-commerce and web accessibility and all those types of keywords that we normally focus on. But I think it's more than that because I could say I could attribute that to maybe a 10 or a 20% drop, but the numbers are huge as far as the drop. We on average going into Q4 had normally over 1 million impressions a month and normally had, you know, engagement, as a percentage of that, but a significant engagement. And we've seen them both drop off. And that around the same time, what we've seen is ChatGPT is getting more and more advanced, and there's more and more that you can do on it. And Google has introduced Bard, and there's Bard with Gemini, so it's improved its capabilities. And I think what's interesting is is we're using these tools. So we're creating this problem ourselves because we're using these tools, and we're relying on these tools. And what I can tell you is that historically, if we were researching something, it would typically start on a Google search, and then would then move to whatever Google suggested. And now we never leave Google, because the generative AI response is usually sufficient enough to give us the information that we're looking for. And I think that we're seeing this while we use it, and I think what we're experiencing is our users who typically would have searched for something that would have led them to our website are now searching and are now getting the information on the respective generative AI platforms, whether it be Bard or ChatGPT or something like that. So I think going into 2024, one of the big things that we have to figure out is, what does this mean, and how do we continue to engage directly with our potential clients, our potential clients, and things like that. And the interesting thing is there's nothing new here, right? We have been saying you need to build a mailing list. Guess what? You need to build a mailing list. We've
Yes.
been saying that you need to touch people more directly and get engaged with these folks more directly. So one of the things that has worked very well for us has been the LinkedIn groups, where we're engaging with a group of people that have signed in, opted on into our group in order to follow the trends, whatever we're talking about. So, again, creating these online communities where people want to engage, where people want to comment and share. And
And
then
driving
lastly,
traffic.
well, you know what? They're not driving traffic as much, but we're still engaging with them. So we're in front of them. And what we do, or what we attempt to do, is, move these folks onto the newsletter, right? So that we still have a direct means to connect with them. But I think we're connecting with them a little more directly through these types of products. And then lastly, the thing that you and I are, you know, in favor of and have been for a long time is this idea of offline activities such as referral marketing, network groups, those types of things. And I think that these components, and we're not, we will continue to write content, we will continue to optimize. So it's not that we're going to stop that, but I think that we need to look at our mix of how we reach people, and to make sure that sort of these other alternatives that we're working these equally as hard, so that we continue to reach people, get engagement, and be less dependent on just being found, because I don't think that being found in this day and age of generative AI is all that helpful. Because I think if you make an inquiry, there's a very good likelihood you'll never leave Google. And that's their goal. I mean, I got to think that's their goal. The one aspect that I'm still somewhat confused about is what is the, and this is, I'm sure there's some valuable insights at Google who hasn't shared them with me. They haven't called me, go figure. But Google has been highly dependent on their ad revenue, and if they're not driving traffic, I'm kind of wondering what that means. But that is something that Google can answer and that I can't, because even in our Google ad accounts, we're seeing less traffic. So they're making less money overall. So I'm assuming there's some big picture thing that, I haven't quite grasped yet, as
Wow.
to what Google's strategy is, right? It could be just, sort of be this alternative, and just, websites, independent websites will go away. So there'll just be less competition. I don't know. But again, I don't have the insights into what Google's big plan is, but it seems like their goal in life is to keep you on the Google platform for as long as possible.
Right. Well, and yeah, I
How's your
totally
optimism
understand.
doing? Did I kill it yet?
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm happy to say that optimization on LinkedIn still works. Optimization on Google, wow. I mean, we're talking major disruption, and it's interesting that we're actually seeing it now. People have been talking about it for months and saying, AI is going to change SEO dramatically.
I've been
And
saying it
it's
for months, and unfortunately, I'm actually seeing it, which isn't necessarily like, no, it's always good to be right.
I think, wow, the evolution of SEO is going through probably one of the biggest disruptions ever since SEO was a thing.
Hmm.
It'll be really interesting to see how this all plays out, because if you're saying that Google Ads are not generating as much revenue for them, they might have to change their tune on how they do things. And
Yeah,
I
so
think
I didn't
for
actually say that, just to clarify. So I don't know what's going on at Google. What I'm saying is our ad
an
accounts
assumption, yes,
aren't as effective as they were prior
an
to,
observation.
general. Yeah, just an observation. I don't know what's happening. I'm sure Google's fine. I'm sure
I'm not
Google's
worried
not
about
worried about me. So like I said, I'm putting in the big disclaimer. I don't know, what the thought process in Google is. I feel like it's a shift, but again, they don't call me and they don't share prior to the podcast. So, I'm only
and
speculating.
yeah, I hope they know what they're doing. Um,
I'm
whether they
sure they
can
do.
communicate it to anyone else, that's a whole nother thing. But I think what this means for individuals and for small businesses and people who have websites and LinkedIn presence and groups and things like that is that we really need to increase the quality of that whole client journey. So the in-person networking and the way we drive traffic and orchestrate the entire client journey, we're going to have to up our game and be a little bit more intentional about each of the steps along the way and the personalization that we use.
You know, I've always had the mantra, don't build on rented land, right? Um,
Yes.
and I think these platforms are rented land, and I think Google for is obviously rented land. So, you know, what we're seeing, while it is quite dramatic, it's not new because, by the color of my goatee, you can tell I've been around a while. And we've been there, done that, and seen this before, right? Because,
Yes.
when we got into this game, Yahoo was the big player. Remember Yahoo? There used to be a company called Yahoo, right? So,
Yahoo!
right? That was the big play. Like I think they were, I think they vied for number one between Google and Yahoo. They kind of went back and forth for quite a while. And I can tell you that most of our marketing back in the day were Yahoo groups. And and we did
They
quite well
were
with that.
they were huge.
They were huge. We didn't do SEO. We didn't have a mailing list. We had just a giant Yahoo group, which fed our traffic and fed, our sales. So, I don't know that this is any different, right? As things come and go, and there's transitions, and then I think just the nature of the online world is things move on, right? So I think we've had a really good ride with Google, right, for many, many years. And we had a really good
Yes.
ride with Yahoo for many, many years, but we figured it out. It took a while. It was extremely painful, the transition from Yahoo to another platform. And, but we figured it out and we went, we landed on the other side. And I think we'll do that here where, I think that this may be a shift or a considerable shift. But people will go somewhere and we'll just have to figure out where they are. And our response, at least for now, is to go to them instead of waiting for them to come to us or waiting for them to find us on whatever the new thing is. I think I don't know how long ago Meta's been around for what, 2 or 3 years now? How long has Meta been around?
Mm, two at least.
Yeah, and I remember Meta was supposed to be the big disruptor, right? Like we were all going to be living on Meta. I'm not seeing that.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, but I mean, and I know that Facebook spent a boatload of money trying to, they
And
obviously
people are,
rebranded.
yeah, and people are exiting Facebook so fast for business purposes. I I hear that all the time.
And then, we have X, formerly known as Twitter, and it just seems that Elon's intent is to put that one out of business. So like that's, we're still on that platform, but I don't
That
know
has been a
what
shit
that's
show.
about. Yeah, it has. So we're not dependent on that as as a platform, and we did well on Twitter when it was Twitter for a long time, and now that it's something different, you know, we still get some visibility out of it, but so again, I think what we need to do is we need to begin to figure out or look for how to engage directly. We've always said that. And just every once in a while it comes back and sort of bites us like, oh, by the way, it's true. You really need to do this. Uh,
For
like
real.
for real. Like, it's one thing when we're like, oh, we're speculating you should build your email, and like, oh no, you should be doing this because there is a shift. And I can tell you that, I subscribe to stuff all the time and I unsubscribe to stuff all the time. But, I do read this stuff and I do look at the stuff that, is sent to me directly. Some of it's good, some of it's not. I'm a big fan of signing up and I'm an even bigger fan of unsubscribing, if it's not meeting my
Yes,
needs. So, to echo your sentiments, we need to drive value because, I can sign up for a lot of stuff, but I'm only, I will unsubscribe if it's not meeting my needs or, I don't need more stuff in my inbox, right? So I'm going to be
none
selective
of
about
us
what I
do.
continue to let be sent there.
Yes. Yeah, I'm in the painful process of combining my old email address with my new one, and there's so much junk. Oh my God, there's so much junk over there.
Yeah, at the end of the year, I just deleted stuff. I just like,
Yeah.
you know what? If I haven't read it in 3 months, and they're not screaming at me, I'm assuming I can delete it. So yeah, I deleted a whole bunch of stuff at the end of the year, which always comes like, and every once in a while that does come back and bite me because I deleted some stuff um in Q3, and then like, all last month I'm like, where is that email? And clearly it was one of the ones that I deleted. I got a little too delete happy, but um, you know, most of it
Yes.
is good. Sometimes not so much, but most of it's good. But I think that moving forward, we are going to be about, connecting directly, whatever that means, whether it means building our email list, whether it means our groups on different social platforms. And within the mix is obviously, in-person activities. Like we're going to go back to more and more in-person activities. I think post-COVID, we're far enough down that path where people are ready for that. Um,
Yes.
Not to the degree that they were beforehand, but still, people, we're hooking up, we're having conversations, we're going to meetings, those types of things.
And I think people are opting for, if they're going to show up in person, it it's going to be meaningful. So I think the quality is a little higher these days. If they're
And
going
I
to
also think,
net, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say, I also think we've redefined what in-person means, right? Because in-person does not necessarily mean getting in your car, driving to a meeting, paying for parking and and that, whereas maybe it's Zoom, maybe it's what we're doing, right? Where that group meets online. They're still meeting and they're still engaging, but they're doing it via Zoom or some other platform that, is easier than going to a physical meeting.
Well, and I'm being really picky about who I decide to have coffee or lunch with too, because that really is an investment in my time and effort. And like you said, driving and parking and all those things that we didn't necessarily do during the pandemic. If I'm going to meet somebody for coffee, I genuinely want I think there's an opportunity there and I genuinely want to meet that person. I'm not doing it as carelessly as I did pre-pandemic.
Well, I mean, for me, I enjoy meeting people in person. However, when I look at my schedule, there's the before and after time, which it really adds, so an hour meeting is at a minimum 2 hours out of the office, right?
Yes.
Depending on how far away it is, and could be more. So, it's just a big block of time going back and forth and preparing for that, putting on real clothes. I'm not a fan of. Uh,
Pants.
Pants, brushing my hair, those extra things. Pants, God, yeah, we hate pants. Um, so I mean, it's just, like you said, you really, are going to think twice because we've realized um that we can function and perform online, during these meetings. We can connect with people. I mean, it's different, but still we're connecting, we're talking, we're meeting them, those types of things. Um, it's, but we're also going physically in person to meetings and doing that. I went to a whole bunch of holiday parties and stuff like that, and it was really great, to see people that you've either been chatting with for a long time or haven't seen in a long time in person. It's a great experience. You know, I'm thinking of a holiday party, like stood next to somebody. We sort of like chatted about the rest of the people in the room and we bonded over that. It's just like, that doesn't happen online as
No,
much, right? It's just like, we're in a room full of people and we're like, hey, because we went to the party and the mayor showed up and the district attorney showed up and a lot of the other politicians showed up. So we're like, oh, okay. So,
interesting.
it's one of those types of events, and it's also an election year, which is why they were showing up to all these events. And
Exactly.
I saw the mayor like 3 times in a 2 week period, and I hadn't seen her in, months. So,
Yeah, well, and she's had a rough go of it. She's been controversial.
well, but she's out working the circuit and so are we. So we're crossing paths, those types of things. So it's all good.
Yes. So, quality of networking events and quality of all of our activities, I really think is a big message here, is really thinking about where are your people and what is the type of interaction that you're going to have with them to bring them closer into your world.
Yeah, I mean, when we're looking at our content, what we're looking at, before when we were looking at content, we're like, okay, how do we promote our product or solution? Okay. So we would talk about it, we would write about it, that kind of stuff. And now what we're really talking about and focused on is, okay, so what is the end user's pain point and how can we help them?
Yes.
And do we have a product or solution that addresses that? But, really, really making sure that our content is about addressing pain points that our clients or potential clients would have so that, that we can position ourselves as a solution.
Yes.
Um,
Well, and really
and
using their language, not just our language, our way of talking about a specific solution or a problem, but really, and back to that whole market research things. What are people saying? What are they complaining about? What are the pain points? What keeps them up at night? What's driving them crazy? That's what we need to address.
And for us, what we do is we use, we look at two things primarily. Um, when we look at Google and we look at those 5 or so questions, when you put in a topic about halfway down the page, it'll say, here's what other people search for. So we're looking at the word, like you said, the language and what they're searching for. And then the other thing that we're doing is ask the public, which is the same. I think it's a tool I've shared with you. It's the same thing where it's like, okay, here are the questions around this topic. Here is, the frequency. So which are the hot questions, which are stuff like that. And just really trying to make sure that we understand their voice and what they're searching for online, versus trying to promote something that we just want to push.
Right. Exactly. There has to be a fit.
And then, the other thing is, if we can provide quality and consistently provide quality, then they might be more enticed to sign up for a newsletter, listen to this podcast, share it, those types of things. We also are using LinkedIn groups, and from a B2B perspective, that's great. We get an unbelievable amount of engagement on the group platform on LinkedIn. I was out early this morning walking the dogs and I ran into a LinkedIn employee. So, I'm like
So
totally picking.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm like totally picking this person's brain. Like, what about this? What about that? She's like, I don't know. I just worked that. She's trying to walk her dogs, and I'm trying to get magical insights into LinkedIn, and apparently that just wasn't happening. But we
LinkedIn
did
is
have a
fairly
conversation.
siloed.
Yeah, but we had a good conversation. We talked about stuff, and it was definitely interesting to run into a LinkedIn employee at the dog park and chat about them. One of the advantages of living in California in the Bay Area is you get to run into these tech people. So we had these opportunities. Ran into a LinkedIn person this morning. Um, I don't know that I got any big insights. She had a really cute dog, by the way, who I think is available for adoption because she's fostering. So if anyone's looking for a dog, contact us. And you're in the Bay Area. But but she didn't offer any great insights into LinkedIn. But we just talked about the different platforms, and I think the thing that we conceded about LinkedIn, here's the big sort of takeaway, and you can tell me whether you agree or not, is there are things about LinkedIn, as in any platform, that aren't so great. I think that I've seen an increase in spam on LinkedIn,
Yes.
where people will attempt to contact or make a connection, and then the first thing they do is try to sell something. So, and every platform has its problems, but I see that as a potential, you know, problem on LinkedIn that is becoming more and more spammy. However, despite all that, our takeaway when we had this discussion, and you can tell me your opinion on that, is, I don't feel like LinkedIn's an evil corporation. I think they do offer a decent product. It's not, when I look at what's going on at Twitter, and I look at, taking away all of the privacy and security issues and things like that. I look at the lawsuits around Facebook violating, stuff like that. There's a recent lawsuit where Google was tracking people when they were in whatchamacallit mode, in incognito mode, so like these companies, I don't feel that way about LinkedIn, and maybe I'm just naive. I realize that they're out to make money, but I don't feel like that they're of that level. You hear horrible things about the poor folks who are working at Amazon, those types of things. So then the one sort of takeaway we had from LinkedIn was, it doesn't seem like a bad company, right? Offers a decent product. Yeah, there's some things we wish they could deal with, but offers a decent product. And, I don't get the evil empire out of LinkedIn that I do from some of the other
They're
platforms.
anywhere near as invasive.
Yeah.
And, out of all the other platforms out there, LinkedIn is the only one that's designed to be B2B. Now, LinkedIn is definitely going through some shifts and some pretty seismic shifts with
Hmm.
their algorithms and the way they're promoting engagement and that sort of thing. They're going through some big shifts too. But in general, it's still pretty easy to rank in optimization on LinkedIn. I'm still having great success with my clients of getting them into the top couple of people for whatever it is that they're trying to show up in searches for and that kind of thing. So it still is a very viable platform despite all of the spamming and the content. I really think the content has decreased because there's a lot of younger content creators out there that are really just they're long-winded. They don't get to the point as quickly. It's not as high quality of content, so it really isn't that difficult to be at the top of the quality spectrum when you're talking about content on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, what's really interesting is, like I mentioned, we have several groups that are industry specific, and every single one of our groups are moderated, intentionally moderated, because any group that's unmoderated on LinkedIn is just, a huge
It's
spam
a
machine.
free for all.
It's a free for all. So if you're going to do LinkedIn groups, you have to moderate them. You have to, and then we check in with our group members all the time. Like, what do you think of the mix? Is it too spammy? Are you getting too many ads? Are you get, what's going on? Tell us what you think. So that we make sure that, because there's a fine line between group members promoting their own stuff and spam,
Yes.
right? And you
Yes.
can't prevent them ever from, because that's why they join the group. They want to promote their business. They want to promote whatever they're working on, and that's fine. And we understand that's part of being in a group. However, we also are very sensitive to when that crosses the line and just becomes spam.
Right, right. It's more about education and offering solutions than it is about buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff.
Yeah, but also there's a frequency aspect of it, right? So we had one person in one of our groups who the content was fine. It was okay, except that they were posting about 30 times a day. And like, because it was just, regardless of how good the content is, that kind of volume from one person is just too much.
No,
Yeah.
not gonna fly. And I have noticed that there are some people that post more than once a day into the newsfeed on LinkedIn. And I don't think they really understand that they're cannibalizing their own content when they do that. The algorithms, it's every 18 hours. If you post
Yeah,
something,
I'm gonna push back on that. I don't know that I necessarily agree. Because we post more than once a day. And the reason why we post more than once a day is I believe you see what's on your feed as it live, right? So what I see now and what I see 3 hours from now are going to be different. Like that post that your one post that you made won't stay in my feed. It'll get
no,
pushed down by other posts after it. So this is our personal thing is we post more frequently because we're aware that the visibility is kind of limited to when you're online.
yes. And it does depend on engagement also. If that one post that you're putting out there a day actually hits a nerve, and people start engaging with it, then it's going to be seen over and over again in
Right.
the news
I mean,
feed.
the algorithm will do that. The algorithm, and we do this with our clients where we're like, okay, we're going to post at 10 a.m. You need to like it, comment, do all kinds of things to,
To
push it
push
up
it
there.
out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah,
But we're also, go ahead.
and controversy is definitely one of those things. I just recently posted something that obviously hit a nerve with a lot of people. I was talking about the I hope you are doing well greeting in emails.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you
I
use
mean,
that?
I don't. And I'm going to
Really?
tell you one day, the week before Christmas, I got 10 in-mails from people trying to sell me lead generation, appointment booking, websites, graphic design, podcast pushing, all sorts of things, offshore people. And every single one of those 10 started with, I hope you are doing well. And
But
that is why I am very sensitive to that. It's overused and it feels insincere because of my
hmm,
context of having things pushed at me. I mean, I'd rather have somebody say something that's actually personal, you know, how was your holiday? Or, anything, but I hope you are doing well. It seems like just the default lazy way of starting something.
great, because I use it all the time. So apparently I'm lazy. I mean, but I use it with people I actually genuinely know and haven't talked to in a while. Like, I hope this finds you well. I hope you're doing good. Because, it's actually, in the case that I use it, and it may not be received that way, but in the case that I use it, it's actually a genuine sentiment that, like, we haven't talked in a while. Hope you're doing good. Let's, whatever. I guess I'm gonna have to find something else to use. So what do you use instead?
Oh, I really just, I don't know. I use something personal. I think about, what's going on? What's my relationship with that person? And really just try to say something that's genuine. And
Hmm.
context is super important. I mean, yeah, if I'm going through my in-mail and somebody is saying that from India or the Philippines and they don't know me at all, they
Hmm.
they just want my business. They don't care if I'm doing well. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But if I reach out to you, like Angela, I hope you're doing well. Let's meet for coffee. Would you be, how would you take that?
that's very different than, I hope you are doing well. I promote podcasts for people and I would
Right.
love to your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I do use it, and like again, I guess that makes me lazy, but I also only use it with people I actually genuinely know and would, care that they're doing well.
And I think in that context, you're safe to be able to use that too. But
We'll say.
one of the comments was just it was pretty outlandish. That sounds like censoring. What are you going to do next? Burn books? It's like, oh my gosh, that's
Giant leap, but whatever. I mean,
kind of yeah,
that's the interesting thing about like diving into a controversial topic is you can generate, you know, a tremendous amount of interest, traffic, whatever, but you also potentially could alienate some of the people that you're working with or have worked with in the past. So,
yes,
you have to sort of be, there's a risk reward type of, consideration when you jump into something, we don't post politics,
oh my
ever,
God.
ever.
Politics have no place on LinkedIn, in my
Well, I
personal
mean, but
opinion.
in any of our platforms, and some of our platforms, we do a lot of stuff locally, and we do a lot of stuff with small businesses, and there's stuff politically that impacts that. So we're very careful as to how we present that, but we don't jump into that mix because it's sort of the risk reward is not worth
It's a
it.
minefield.
It's a
It's
minefield.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
most of the comments on that specific post were like, wow, I never thought about it that way. I'm going to
Mm.
rethink the way they were very thoughtful comments, with a great deal of, heart and intelligence behind them. So I
Mm.
think overall, even though it touched a nerve with a couple of people, that um, I still think it was a very relevant post.
I mean, it can be great, if it lands and it does, but there's a risk to it. It could also blow up. So you have to, but that's viral. Anything viral can go either way.
Right. I mean, if you're posting content, there's going to be haters, and sometimes it makes absolutely no sense. It's too big of a leap. It's too harsh of a comment. It doesn't fit the content. That those things happen. So
I mean,
you
some
really
people
do have
post
to be
just
prepared.
inflammatory for the sake of posting inflammatory. We know this on our favorite X platform. But you know that, and you either avoid that
Prepared
or
for it.
be prepared for it. Which is different than occasionally bringing up a topic that might be controversial.
Right. Right. And I really didn't think that that was such a hugely controversial topic. I was really just sharing an article from Harvard Business Review about that,
Hmm.
and thought it was interesting. And obviously, it was to an extreme.
So tell me about 2024. Like, what will be your offline activities?
I am really increasing the quality of my offline activities. It's so interesting that you asked that. Yesterday, one of my friends, another LinkedIn consultant, posted something and he said, who are your top 50 networking people? And what if you just got a hold of every single one of them?
Hmm.
What do you think that would do? And I just thought that was fascinating. So last night I sat down and I wrote a list of my top 50 networking people. You're on the list, Mike. You'll be happy
Thank
to
you.
know.
I don't want
And
to
then
know where on the list, but I'm on the list. So I'll leave it at that.
actually, you fell into the in real life category.
Oh,
So,
cool.
we're overdue to get together in
We
person.
are.
and and so I went through, and that's what, some people are, in Washington D.C. or New York, and I'm not going to meet them in real life, but
Hmm.
it still depends. Am I going to send them a Zoom link to get together for half an hour or an hour, or am I just going to send them an email and say whatever I'm going to say instead of I hope you are doing well?
I know. It just popped up. Sorry. I went somewhere in my head, but I was like, oh, I need to reach out to Brian. I haven't talked to him in ages. And I was
Oh
thinking
my
like, oh
God,
yeah, I can't say how I hope you're well because apparently that's not good. So I have to come up with a new thing to re-engage with Brian. But I was like, it just popped in my head, like, I haven't talked to Brian in forever. I really need to engage. But I also think that we fall into the trap of, oh, because we go and we meet these folks, that's enough, right? Um, because I think you need to do more work than that.
The fortune
Um,
is in the follow-up. I mean, here's a great example. All the people in Provisors that are located physically in Marin, we decided to get together for just a really impromptu lunch that week in between Christmas and New Year's. And we all decided that it was like the best thing because we're all from different groups. We don't normally run into each other. We just had a really great time. And it was so interesting. Of the people that committed to go to that lunch, 100% of them showed up. And we decided
and I
to
guess
do that once a quarter. And I think that's really high quality. But you're right. I went through the list of everybody that sat at that table and I was like, who am I not connected to on LinkedIn? And I'll send them a personal note. And so there is some follow up. I have 2 coffee dates out of that I'm people that I'm genuinely interested in, and have something of business to talk to with them. So the follow up is everything. You can't just go to a massive networking event and expect that something will happen from that. There needs to be some one on one.
and then and the point that I was kind of getting to is also look at the data behind these people, right? Because so you've created this list of 50 people, right?
Yes,
Okay. Have you gone through the list of 50 people? How many people referred to you in the last 6 months of those 50 people?
that's an interesting question. I'm going to have to look
Because
through the
just because
list.
they're on your list and just because you talk to them frequently doesn't necessarily make them a good networking partner if they've never referred to you or you've never referred to them.
Well, that's interesting because when I was thinking about the first 10 people on that list, getting my list started, I'm like, where
Hmm.
has my business come from? Last year, that was the first thing I thought about. And so
I
those
mean,
first 10 people are referral partners.
and then my next question automatically would be to you is those 10 people that you were referring who were referring to you, have you referred back to all 10 people?
Um, Not 100%, I don't think.
Okay.
I'll, but those
But I
are,
mean, that's what I mean by
this
like,
is going to be a newsletter someday.
yeah. But this is what I'm talking about as far as like people get lazy, even with the in-person networking, where it's like, oh, these are my top 50 people. They're my people. And I'm like, no, they're not really, if you haven't really looked at the information behind it. Like,
Right,
you know, these top 50, there's going to be people on that list who have never referred to you. Why are they on your top 50? Just because you talk to them, just because you see them at events on a regular basis, doesn't make them, referral partners. And if they are good referral partners, are you taking care of them in reciprocation?
yes,
Right?
right,
Because, at some point, if I continually refer to someone and they never give back, I'm looking for another place to refer.
right.
you know so for us, and especially when it comes around referral marketing, is to really understand what the activity is. Like, okay, who actually is generally giving to us? Are we giving back? Who are we giving to, and are we getting back? To sort of make sure that we understand those numbers, because if I've given to somebody 3 or 4 times and they've never given back, they're not my referral partner, right?
Right.
Because we know in referral marketing, there's givers, takers, and then there's folks that, do both, which is what you're supposed to do, right? So, if it's just a taker, I need to replace that person,
Right.
you know?
Yes.
So
Excellent point.
I would suggest that when you look at those top 10, make sure you're giving back to those top 10, or make sure you can find a way. You may not be able to give back to them directly because you may not be in the same space, but you can refer other things to them, or you can find other ways to give back to them. Similarly, if look at that list of 50, and like if there's someone on there that has never ever referred to you, why are they on your list? Just because you see them frequently, just because they're a nice person? I mean, I have lots of nice people in my lives that are not my referral partners.
Well, and actually, the person who started this whole thing, Robert, he's I don't think he's ever really referred anybody to me, and I've not
Hmm.
referred to him. We're in such different spaces for LinkedIn consulting. He works
Hmm.
with insurance companies. So he deals with heavy duty compliance and sales teams. So it's a very, very different space than what I work in. But the two of us have been really good friends and we talk to each other frequently and we share what our observations are about LinkedIn. He might see things that I don't. I might see things that he doesn't. And that is extremely valuable to me. And we share each other's content on a regular basis. And that is very valuable to me. So it's not a direct referral, but it is a relationship that I value highly.
Yeah, and those are equally important. I'm not suggesting you just cut everybody off your list because they haven't sent you a referral in the last 6 months. But he falls into a different bucket than a referral partner.
There's value there. It's
There's
not
value,
necessarily a
but he's not
referral,
necessarily a
but
referral partner. He's a value partner for other reasons,
yes.
right? Which and so important to have those folks, but it's also important to make sure that we're distinguishing. Like you don't have expectations from Robert that you will get a referral from him. Not the relationship you have with him, and that's
Exactly.
not the. So he's in a different category, which is fine, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's different than like he's not your referral partner. He's an industry, you know, um,
He's a
cohort that you
thought
can
leader.
share information, right? And those are different activities, and those are equally as important, but he's not a referral partner, he's an industry partner.
Right. Right.
So, what I'm sort of suggesting is that when we work with people and when we talk with people about referral networking, what we see is they know they should do it and they do the first step. And we're like, yeah, that's not enough. If you expect this to actually generate results, that's not enough. Just going to the event and sitting at a table with 50 nice people, while it is a pleasant experience, that's not enough, right?
Right.
And part of it is follow up and making sure that they start to, we have the whole funnel marketing of awareness, know, like, and trust, that whole thing. And so there's a process to this. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at those top 50, like how many have actually genuinely referred to you? How many, have you referred back? Who are you referring to that's not referring back to you? Why are you still referring to them? Those types of sort of assessments. And the only way to know that is understand, keep track of the numbers, the underlying numbers.
Well, and an excellent example of that is one of my friends, Susan. I mean, we've probably met 6 to 8 times just because we like each other and we want to refer business to each other. But it's taken, a year and a half, 2 years for us to really figure out how to refer to each other. So there's been an incredible investment, and we are currently now working on a larger contract together. But it took almost 2 years to figure out how to do that. And so we just continually invested in the relationship until we got to the place where we could really understand how I could benefit her clients and she could benefit mine.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm suggesting that just being more mindful when it comes to referral marketing and referral networking, that simply showing up at the table is not enough.
Nope,
You
it is
know,
not.
you and I have both been in networking groups, and I've been in networking groups, and I will admit this up front that I will join a networking group, spend some time. There's some great people and stuff, and I'll look across the room and they're like, nope, never going to refer to this person.
There's more than that than you realize.
Right. So it's either a case of, the like and trust isn't there, or it's just an industry that I just will never, like no one's ever going to ask me, do you have a recommendation for a funeral director? It's like, thank God, but they don't. So if I'm in a room with, and the person happens to be that, it's not going to happen. And that's, I think, one of the fallacies of the networking thing is like, you're supposed to refer to everyone in the room. And it's like, for a
It's
multitude of reasons, you won't, right?
right.
Either you don't like the person, which, that
You
does
don't
happen,
trust them enough.
right? You don't think they're quality, whatever, or for whatever reason, the people that you engage with will, never cross the path of something that you would pass on. Like, I just never come across that type of person.
Right.
What's interesting for me, and and this is fortunately a big enough generalization that it shouldn't get me in trouble, but it might. But inevitably, there is the real estate agent and the mortgage broker. And like, why don't you send me referrals? Why don't you send me referrals? It's like, because I don't have a whole bunch of people buying and selling houses around. Like, it's
And
just like, it's
especially in the Bay Area.
especially now. But it's just like, it's not for not wanting to. It's just I don't come across those types of people in the type of work that I do. They're not asking me for like, like, oh, thanks for doing my digital marketing. Do you know where I can get a mortgage? That sort of transition never occurs. And then, inevitably what will happen is that person gets frustrated because they're like, why aren't you sending me referrals? I'm like, because the nature of what I do doesn't cross paths with what you do,
Right.
those
Right. And
types
so
of
you have
things.
to come up with other ways to. Um, I do have a mortgage broker that sends
Hmm.
me great referrals. And
But
so
how many,
it,
potential mortgage clients have you sent them?
I zero,
Okay,
zero.
that's tough, right?
So
Because that's a one-sided relationship to some degree.
so we have to come up with different ways. Um, there are things that I help him with. I'll take him out for dinner. I helped his wife when she needed some LinkedIn help. There are other ways that we keep that a reciprocal relationship. But I
Yeah, I
have
mean,
to
for
really
us,
think about it.
and for us, one of the things we do is, you know, tell me who you want to meet. Let me find you that connection, right? I don't have a direct referral, but I met with a tax person last month, and we were chatting, and like, people aren't coming to me for tax advice, so I'm not referring them on to a tax person. So I knew by sort of the nature of what this person does that I wasn't going to be passing a lot of referrals to them. So I asked him, I'm like, who do you want to meet? It's not me. Clearly, it's not me. So who do you want to meet? And he's like, our number one source, and the gentleman is Latino. So he said that our number one source of referrals is Hispanic divorce attorneys. I'm like, okay, I could work with that. I could find you, like I can look at my network and figure out who does family law, figure out, who also speaks Spanish, that type of thing. So I was never, or I perceived that I was probably not going to have a lot of referrals for this person, but I want to engage with them. And there's somebody I think, for reasons outside of my own referrals, is I want, like you said, there's some people that you just want to engage with, for relationship purposes, for other things. So for me, knowing I can't refer directly to them, I was looking for alternatives. So I went through my network, and I think I asked you and I asked a couple other people.
And I
I did
sent
ask,
you
right?
several different referrals.
Right, right. So I was able, so for me, sometimes what we do is we look at the second and third degree of referral, right? So that I still sent him stuff. It just wasn't a direct referral.
And there's some great value in that. I mean, yes, he's going to have to establish his own relationships, but if even one of those referrals turns out to be a great partner for him, it's more than worth it.
Yeah. And also, it's also for me, it's something that, once you put it in my head, then as I run across it, I'm like, oh, you should be talking to this guy. Where before, like, it wouldn't have registered. But now that I have it in my head, if I run across somebody who is a divorce lawyer, um, for, the Latino community, I know, oh, I should refer him on to this person.
Yes.
So
So, how are we going to wrap things up in a nice bow? We went all over the map
we went
today.
all over the place, which we do every time. Um, I think in summation, what we've talked about is, there's a shift with some of the more traditional means of sourcing leads, sourcing traffic, those types of things. I think our dependency on the folks at Google and other platforms, you know, will be affected by generative AI, and therefore we need to revisit our mix of our marketing mix. And for us, what that means is more going back to more of the owned properties. Don't build on rented land, build your own mailing list, get out there and meet people in person, network directly. We talked about networking where it's not enough to simply go to the event, where you need, once you start to seriously start to network, you need to track the data, like how many referrals have you gotten? How many have you given? Who's referring to you that you haven't given back to? Because then you have an obligation, because otherwise that client will move on. And who are you referring to and not receiving? And then you need to revisit whether or not that partnership works. Because if you're not getting anything back, why would you not look for a new source to refer to? So I think 2024 is about realigning the marketing mix. Google will continue to be a part of it, obviously. But we think, our dependence on Google solely needs to be lessened. And we need to look at some of these other avenues. In the last year or so, one of the things that we've concertedly done is, hyper local, focus on local, make connections locally. And sort of that's one of our conscious decisions, and that's something that we'll continue to focus on in 2024 is to remain local. What can we do locally? What can we, how do we engage locally? Because those are the people that I walk down the street and I run into 2 or 3 people, that way. And, when people are with me, they're like, why does everybody know you? Because I'm out there working it is why, you know what I mean? Because I'm engaging with them locally and I'm talking with them and I'm, trying really hard to understand, like, what are they looking for? So, if you need a divorce lawyer, I can, look at my network and see if I can make that connection. But we are, intentionally focusing on local.
And I think that wraps it up very neatly.
Great. If you like what we said, if you think we wander too much, too bad, because that's not going to change. But otherwise, leave us a comment below, leave us your thoughts. If you have an issue or thought around hope this finds you well, we welcome that. I will try to stop using it apparently because it's lazy. And we will see you next week on Badass Marketing. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.